Hello and welcome to Blizz News. While the educational future of 108,000 aspiring doctors and dentists who have passed the NEET 2024 exams for admissions into medical and dental colleges in the country hangs in the balance, the NEET exam paper leak issue continues to be vigorously argued in court. The government is making every effort to claim that the leak has not happened nationwide but localized to one or two places. Therefore, it says a re-exam of all candidates is not necessary, but only of those candidates in the areas in which the leak has occurred. Of course, after giving the National Testing Agency or NTA a clean chit in the leak, because of political compulsions, the government will attempt to ensure that the exams are not cancelled. Leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi had earlier addressed the issue in Parliament during his motion of thanks to the President's address. It is a political hot potato. A re-exam would further depreciate the BJP's declining political capital. However, the interests of any political party is not the issue. Rather, the issue is about the futures of lakhs of youth, of systemic problems in conducting exams in the country, of the long-known paper leak rackets, and the need to put an end to it all. Today, we are going to look at 4 critical aspects raised in the court in the latest hearing that took place on July 17, which will affect the decision of the court. To begin with, let us hear what the Supreme Court is seeking to establish. Listen in.
Basically, on the basis of your submissions, that the leak is so systemic and has affected the entire examination process across the country that we must cancel the examination and direct a fresh examination to be held.
As the Chief Justice of India, Justice D.Y. Chandrachud said, the cancellation of the entire exam for all aspirants depends on whether the leak is a serious systemic problem that has affected aspirants all over the country or not. To briefly recap the issue, it all began when on one hand, an expose highlighted the cheating in examination centers in Godhra in Gujarat. In this case, the aspirants would leave their answer sheets blank for questions that they could not answer. Conspiring professors at the centers would then fill the blank answers. On the other hand, elsewhere, the NEET exam papers leaked before the exam. The leaks have so far been located in Hazaribagh in Jharkhand and in Patna in Bihar, but not necessarily limited to these cities. Taking over investigations from the Economic Offences Unit, CBI has arrested 70 people so far in connection with the leak. Subsequently, aspirants who did not pass the exam, along with others who did pass it, filed writ petitions in the High Courts and the Supreme Court. About 131 aspirants filed petitions in the Supreme Court alone, asking for a re-exam. At the same time, 245 aspirants who passed the exams filed petitions in the same court opposing the cancellation of the exam. Both of these groups of aspirants have their own good arguments for the following reasons. Approximately 56,000 government college seats and 52,000 private college seats are available to aspirants through NEET. The first group of aspirants filed petitions saying that the leak made the playing ground uneven for everyone. This argument is justified and does not need further elaboration. At the same time, among those aspirants who filed petitions for re-exam, there are those who filed petitions because the exam determines whether aspirants would get admission in low-cost government colleges or in exorbitant private colleges. Apparently, the aspirants who approached the courts also included aspirants from this group of aspirants who did not make it to the government college list but qualified for the private colleges, which charge exorbitant fees. When the matter reached the Supreme Court on July 8, July 11, and July 17, Chief Justice Chandrachud observed that unless there was evidence of the leak being geographically vast, it would be injudicious to cancel the entire exam, as it would not be a widespread systemic problem but a local problem. Therefore, the advocates appearing for the petitioners who want re-exam are required to prove that the leak was indeed geographically wide and that there is a wider systemic problem. Solicitor General Tushar Mehta, on behalf of the government, argued that the leak was a local one that occurred in Patna in Bihar and in Hazaribagh in Jharkhand. He also claimed that the Godhra incident was not one of paper leak, but was a mere case of cheating. That's only half the truth, as we will learn later on in this video. To contend that it was not a systemic problem, Mehta cited an IIT Madras report which claimed that there was no major abnormality in the pattern of results. The IIT had analyzed the data and came up with a bell curve analysis to buttress its finding. During the 5-hour-long third sitting of the Supreme Court in the matter, Mehta brought up many diversionary technical details. We are not going to get into those technical details and instead focus on precisely the issue of whether the leak was widespread or just local and whether the problem is a systemic one. To establish that the problem was systemic, to begin with, Advocate Huda told the court that the IIT Madras report was compiled to suit the government. To substantiate this claim, he firstly told the court that there was a conflict of interest in the IIT report. The conflict arises because the chairman of JEE or Joint Entrance Exam for all IITs and other engineering colleges in the country and an appointee of the government is also a de facto member of NTA. The NTA too is in the dock because it conducted the NEET exam. Mehta tried to dodge this charge but had to agree that the chairman of JEE was a de facto member of NTA because it is a documented fact.
IIT organizes JEE examination, IIT JEE for selection. The chairman of that examination committee is ex officio member in NEET, NT.
Secondly, Huda told the court that IIT Madras had erred while doing the analysis, as the analysis was of 23.33 lakh aspirants who appeared for the exam and not of the 1,08,000 aspirants who had qualified. Of these 1,08,000 aspirants, as compared to the previous year, there was over a threefold jump in the number of aspirants who scored between 550 to 720 marks, with 61 of them scoring the full 720 marks. Huda argued that analyzing all 23.33 lakh results would not reveal whether a couple of thousand aspirants who had passed through unfair means are included in the list of those who passed. Mr. Huda's argument is a tenable one. Earlier, a former IIT Kanpur professor elucidated the same opinion. Speaking to Indian Express, Professor Dheeraj Sanghi, currently acting Vice Chancellor at J.K. Lakshmipat University, Jaipur, said that a bell-shaped curve is not how a graph plotted for exams such as JEE and NEET should look like. No inference on anomalies can be drawn just by looking at the bell curve. If 3% of candidates have cheated, the graph will only reflect it if they all get similar marks, which is not possible, he said. Vishal Vaibhav, Assistant Professor Optics and Photonics Center, IIT Delhi, on the other hand, actually plotted the graph, found anomalies and questioned the methodology used by IIT Madras. Speaking to The Hindu, he said, "When we plot it on a logarithmic scale, which is like using a magnifying glass to see the data comparison, large gaps are picked up at extreme ends of the curve. On the extreme right end, we find more aspirants scoring higher scores in 2024 as compared to 2023. It is evident that a logarithmic plot is better suited to visualize rank inflation, the one that IIT Madras has not used. The current method used by IIT Madras lacks specificity to pick up anomalies and is pseudoscientific." To establish a systemic problem, the next aspect argued by Advocate Huda was the anomaly in the transportation and storage of the exam papers that led to the leak. This is what he said.
The transportation of the question paper got compromised when for 6 days the question paper remained in the hands of a private courier company, 3rd of May 2000, which was received by the principal, and instead of the custodian, that is the SBI. And now the information with us is that this principal of Hazaribagh has been arrested for being a conspirator in the leak.
By revealing how the paper leak occurred, Advocate Huda fundamentally sought to establish that the leak appeared on May 3 and not at 10:15 a.m. on May 5, which is what the government claimed. Any sensible person would ask the question that, since the exam was at 2 in the afternoon on May 5, is it possible to solve 180 questions, send them to aspirants, and then have them memorize it all in a span of 3 hours and 45 minutes? Basic common sense tells us it is not possible. The third aspect raised by Advocate Huda was the dissemination of the question paper via a telegram channel.
Question paper was circulated on a telegram channel one day prior to the scheduled examination on 4th of May 2024 at 12 a.m. This breach of security has raised significant concerns regarding the integrity of the fairness of the examination process. Given the nature of social media and modern communication platform, it is impossible to accurately determine the full extent of leak and identify all beneficiaries. Information shared on social media spread rapidly and uncontrollably, reaching an extensive audience within a very short period.
After Advocate Huda further expounded on the transmission of the question paper via telegram, Solicitor General Mehta tried to wriggle out of it by using snapshots of the message. He erroneously cited the date and time on which the snapshot was taken as the day the paper went to telegram recipients. The watermark snapshot showed 6 p.m. on May 5th evening, that is after the exams were completed. Huda's team debunked this claim by demonstrating to the court how text messages and documents sent through telegram function. On top of the message, the date showing was morning of May 4th. Finally, to elicit the wide geographical distribution of the leak, Advocate Huda elicited a possible link between the paper leak and the Godhra incident. This is also something that Justice Chandrachud concurred was a possibility. This is what the justice said.
Now, look, we take your point that there's a likelihood that the leaked answers had traveled to Godhra as well.
That's right.
Huda's submission and Justice Chandrachud's thinking about the leaked paper reaching Godhra makes sense. For instance, how could a geography professor arrested in the Godhra case fill in blank answers of questions about physics, chemistry, and biology if he already did not have the solved answers? In addition, how could he have had the solved answers if the exam paper was not in the possession of the conspirators before the day of the exam? However, insisting on leaving no loose ends, Justice Chandrachud asked the advocates whether they had any official documentation that the paper leak occurred prior to May 5. The May 3 date earlier mentioned by Huda was from a news report from the Times of India. Basically, the justice's question intended to establish whether there was enough time for solving the leaked question paper for disseminating it to aspirants via telegram well in advance. The response to this question came from Advocate Sanjay Hegde, who is also representing a petitioner in the issue. This is what he said.
At 6 o'clock, they say we were tipped off by our people by the police in Hazaribagh. We catch that man there. That man tells us that we were on the previous evening itself. We were taken to this play school, and all this was memorized. And what came in the NEET exam was exactly the same. So therefore, the leak, it has reached Patna on the 4th.
No.
Read the FIR. Please read the FIR. Please read the FIR.
From Advocate Hegde's argument, it is clear that the conclusive evidential matter now rests on the Patna FIR registered by the Economic Offences Unit on May 4. The unit had registered the FIR on the basis of a tip-off. Though we do not know when the person who tipped them off got his information, as per evidence on record up to now, it does not indicate that the paper leaked. It does indicate that the paper leaked latest on May 4 and earliest on May 3. Once the said FIR lands in court, the evidence that the paper leak occurred well in advance, that it could have been widely distributed, and that there is a systemic problem more or less becomes concrete. Further, if the court orders a re-exam, it is not the first time that the Supreme Court will be doing it. Earlier in 2015, the Supreme Court cancelled the All India Pre-Medical Pre-Dental Test or AIPMT which is the predecessor of NEET undergraduate. A bench of Justices R.K. Agarwal and Amitav Roy said abrogation of the examination would result in some inconvenience to all concerned and that some extra time would be consumed for holding a fresh examination and renewed efforts thereof. However, this is the price the stakeholders would have to suffer in order to maintain the impeccable and irrefutable sanctity and credibility of a process of examination to assess the innate worth and capability of the participating candidates. In the 2015 case, the judges ruled on malpractices through electronic devices that occurred in one city, that is Rohtak in Haryana. This time it has occurred in at least 2 cities. Counsel for AIPMT had argued that only 44 beneficiaries of the alleged deceitful operation were identified and the whole process cannot be construed to have been invalidated. However, the court said that while 44 candidates were identified as having benefited from the malpractice, it is not unlikely that many more candidates have availed such undue advantage. Segregation of the identified 44 candidates cannot be the solution, it said. It also said, we are conscious of the fact that every examination being conducted by a human agency is likely to suffer from some shortcomings, but deliberate inroads into its framework of the magnitude and the nature, as exhibited in the present case, demonstrate a deep-seated and pervasive impact which ought not to be disregarded or glossed over. If such an examination is saved, merit would be a casualty generating a sense of frustration in the genuine aspirants. In the present case, 61 aspirants got 720 marks. 720 are the full number of marks. The government is trying to bring down the numbers of these 61 successful aspirants to 17 through surreptitious arguments that do not pass the test of law. However, even if 17 aspirants benefited from the leak, there is no conclusive way of learning how many aspirants benefited from it. Basing any rulings using such and similar criteria pushed by the government would not be justified by jurisprudence. Now coming to the ruling, since there is a precedence laid by the Supreme Court in the 2015 case, one would naturally expect the bench to take a similar route. However, Justice Chandrachud has said that the bench may come up with a third option. The 2015 ruling by a 2-judge bench does not bind Justice Chandrachud's 3-judge bench to follow the suit either. All the same, whatever ruling the court makes, it has to bear in mind that it would set a precedent for the future while the government is trying to dodge its responsibility for the leak. There is no doubt that there are several failures on the part of the NTA and we will never really know at how many levels the exam paper has leaked. The CBI has demonstrated to pursue the interest of the government and not that of the people. One therefore cannot expect it to indict its own paymasters. What indicts the NTA is that if there is no systemic problem, why is the Solicitor General doing his best through untenable arguments to prevent a re-exam? Similarly, why did the Education Minister rush to give NTA a clean sheet even without a probe? More importantly, why is an FIR not registered against NTA? At the end of it all, that is where the buck stops. On Monday, we will know more about what awaits the medical and dental college aspirants. Till then, all we can do is wait. Thank you for watching this video and do subscribe to receive notifications of our next video on the misuse and compromising of IIT Madras to cover the government's failures in NEET. Do also like and share the video so that the issue gets wider coverage.